Good morning, everyone. It's March 30th, Monday. School officially starts tomorrow. We were supposed to have a day off today. I think that's why we're waiting to officially start everything tomorrow. Thank you to everyone who's contacted me and set up times. I'm looking forward to seeing all your smiling faces. It's been a while since I read Despereuax. Here's the cover again. We're on chapter 29. Start with the kersey and finish with the thread. Midgery Sow's luck continued on her first day on the job as a castle servant. She was sent to deliver a spool of red thread to the princess. Mind, said the head of the serving staff, a dour woman, like a not very friendly woman named Louise. She is royalty, so you must make sure you curtsy. How's that? Shouted Miggery. You must curtsy, shouted Louise. Go, said Mig. Yes'm. She took the spool of thread from Louise and made her way up the golden stairs to the princess's room, talking to herself as she went. Here I am, off to see the princess, me, Miggery Sow, seeing the princess up close and personal like. And first off, I must curtsy, because she is in the royalty. At the door to the princess's room, Mig had a sudden crisis of confidence. She stood a moment, clutching the spool of thread and muttering to herself. Now, how did that go? She said. Give the princess the thread and then give her a kersey? No. First the kersey and then the thread. That's it. Go. That's right. That's the order. Start with the kersey and finish with the thread. She knocked at the princess's door. Enter, said the pea. Mig, hearing nothing, knocked again. Enter, said the pea, and Mig, still hearing nothing, knocked yet again. Maybe, she said to herself, the princess ain't to home. But then the door was flung wide, and there was the princess herself staring right at Miggery Sow. Go, said the Mig, her mouth hanging open. Hello, said the pea. Are you the new serving maid? Have you brought me thread? Kersey, I must, shouted the Mig, and she gathered her skirts, dropped the spool of thread, stuck a foot out, stepped on the spool, rocked back and forth for what seemed like quite a long time, both to the watching princess and the rocking Mig, and finally fell to the floor with a Miggish thud. Whoopsie, said Mig. Quite move. My camera person's moving back and forth. I hope it doesn't look like, she's doing it on purpose. I'm going to start over in that paragraph. Whoopsie, said Miggery Sow, and the pea could not help it. She laughed. That's all right, she said to Mig, shaking her head. It's the spirit of the thing that counts. How's that? Shouted Mig. It's the spirit of the thing that counts, shouted Pea. Thank you, miss, said Mig. She got slowly to her feet. She looked at the princess. She looked down at the floor. First the kersey, and then the thread, Mig muttered. Pardon, said the pea. Go, said Mig. The thread. She dropped to her hands and knees to locate the spool of thread. When she found it, she stood back up and offered it to Pea. I brought you your thread, didn't I? There's a picture of Mig falling. Claire's going to get a good close-up.
There's the thread.
And then Mig said, whoopsie. Lovely, said the princess as she took the thread from Mig. Thank you so much. I cannot seem to hold on to a spool of red thread. Every one I have disappears somehow. Are you making a thing? Asked Mig, squinting at the cloth in the pea's hand. I'm making a history of the world. My world, said the pea, in tapestry, which is like in a blanket. See, here's my father. Claire is not being so helpful today. And he is playing the guitar because that is something he loves to do and does quite well. And here is my mother, the queen, and she is eating soup because she loved soup. Soup, go. That's against the law. Yes, said the princess. My father outlawed it because my mother died while she was eating it. Your ma's dead? Yes, said the pea. She died just last month. She bit her bottom lip to stop it from trembling. Ain't that the thing? Mig said. My ma is dead, too. How old were you when she died? Bold, was I? said Meg, taking a step back away from the princess. I'm sorry then. No, how old? How old were you? Shouted the pea. Not but 6, said the Meg. I'm sorry, said the princess. She gave Meg a quick, deep look of sympathy. How old are you now? 12 years. So am I, said the princess. We're the same age. What is your name? She shouted. Miggery. Miggery Sow, but most just call me Mig. And I saw you once before, princess. You passed me by on a little white horse. On my birthday it was, and I was in the field with uncle's sheep, and it was sunset time. Did I wave to you? Said the princess. Did I wave? Shouted the pea. Yes, nodded Meg. But you didn't wave back, said the princess. I did, said Meg, only you didn't see. Someday I will sit on a little white horse and wear a crown and wave. Someday, said Meg, and she put a hand to touch her left ear. I will be a princess too. Really? Said the pea. She gave Meg another quick, deep look, but said nothing else. When Meg finally made her way back down the golden stairs, Louise was waiting for her. How long, she roared, does it take you to deliver a spool of thread to the princess? Too long? Guessed Meg. That's right, said Louise, and she gave Meg a good clout to the ear. You are not destined to be one of our star servants. That is already abundantly clear. No, ma'am, said Meg. That's all right, though, because I aim to be a princess. You, a princess? Don't make me laugh. This, reader, was a little joke on Louise's part, as she was not a person who laughed. Ever. Not even at a notion as ridiculous as Miggery Sow becoming a princess. Chapter 30. To the dungeon. Ooh, and who's in the dungeon? We know that Despereuax in the dungeon. And we know that Roscoe, same guy, is in the dungeon. Let's find out. At the castle, for the first time in her young life, Meg had enough to eat. And eat she did. She quickly became plump, and then plumper still. She grew rounder and rounder and bigger and bigger. Only her head stayed small. Reader, as the teller of this tale, it is my duty from time to time to utter some hard and rather disagreeable truths in the spirit of honesty. Then I must inform you that Meg was the tiniest bit lazy. And 2, she was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. That is, she was a bit slow-witted. It took her a while to understand things. Because of these shortcomings, Louise was hard-pressed to find a job that Miggery Sow could effectively perform. In quick succession, Meg failed as a lady-in-waiting. She was caught trying on the gown of a visiting duchess. A seamstress, she sewed the cloak of the writing master to her own frock and ruined both. And as a chambermaid, sent to clean her room, she stood open-mouthed and delighted, admiring the gold walls and floors and tapestries, exclaiming over and over again, "Gore, ain't it pretty? Gore, ain't it something then?" and did no cleaning at all. And while Meg was trying and failing at these many domestic chores, other important things were happening in the castle. The rat in the dungeon below, remember the rat is Chiaroscuro, was pacing and muttering in the darkness, waiting to take his revenge on the princess. And upstairs in the castle, the princess had met a mouse, and the mouse had fallen in love with her. Will there be consequences? You bet. Do we already know what the consequences were? Just as Meg's inability to perform any job well had its consequences, for finally, as a last resort, Louise sent Meg to the kitchen, where Cook had a reputation for dealing effectively with difficult help. In Cook's kitchen, Meg dropped eggshells in the pound cake batter. She scrubbed the kitchen floor with cooking oil instead of cleanser. She sneezed directly into the king's pork chop moments before it was to be served to him. Of all the good-for-nothings I have encountered, shouted the cook, surely you are the worst, the most cauliflower-eared, the good-for-nothingest. There's only one place left for you, the dungeon. Eh? Said Meg, cupping a hand around her ear. You are being sent to the dungeon. You are to take the jailer his noonday meal. That will be your duty from now on. Reader, You know that the mice of the castle feared the dungeon. Must I tell you that the humans feared it too? Certainly it was never far from their thoughts. In the warm months, a foul odor rose out of its dark depths and permeated, which means like covered, the whole of the castle. And in the still, cold nights of winter, terrible howls issued from the dark place, as if the castle itself were weeping and moaning. It's like crying. It's only the wind, the people of the castle assured each other, nothing but the wind. Many a serving girl had been sent to the dungeon, being the jailer's meal only, or bearing the jailer's meal, only to return white-faced and weeping, hands trembling, teeth chattering, insisting that they would never go back. And worse, there were whispered stories of those servant girls who had been given the job of feeding the jailer, who had gone down the stairs and into the dungeon, and who had never been seen or heard from again. That's the I think this is the cook. Oh no, there's Miggery, and this is the cook.
Doesn't she look more round?
Yeah, I was wondering. That's a good observation.
She's big.
She's been eating a lot. She went all her life without getting a meal, and now she can eat all she wants. She hasn't figured out quite how to balance that out.
And let's read under it. There's only one plate left for you. The
place.
The dungeon.
Will you read that again?
There's only one place left for you. The dungeon.
So she's headed to the dungeon. But people have said that the serving girls who go to the dungeon don't come back, and they haven't been heard of. This is like the wildest YouTube video ever. It's almost like you're on a roller coaster. Do you believe that this will be Mig's fate? Oh, I hope not. That was kind of a story. Or what kind of a story would this be without Mig? Listen, you cauliflower-eared fool, shouted Cook. This is what you do. You take the tray of food down to the dungeon, and you wait for the old man to eat the food, and then you bring the tray back up. Do you think you can manage that? I reckon so, said Mig. I take the old man the tray, and he eats what's on it, and then I bring the tray back up. Empty it would be then. I bring the empty tray back up from the deep downs. That's right, said Cook. Seems simple, don't it? But I'm sure you'll find a way to bungle it. Said Mig. Nothing, said the cook. Good luck to you. You'll be needing it. She watched as Mig descended the dungeon stairs. They were the very same stairs, reader, that the mouse Despereuax had been pushed down the day before. Unlike the mouse, however, Mig had a light on the tray with the food. There was a single flickering candle to show her the way. She turned on the stairs and looked back at the cook and smiled. That cauliflower-eared, good-for-nothing fool, said the cook, shaking her head. What's to become of someone who goes down into the dungeon smiling, I ask? Reader, the answer to the cook's question, For the answer to the cook's question, you must read on. Chapter 31. A song in the darkness. A terrible foul means bad, odor of the dungeon did not bother Mig. Perhaps that is because sometimes when Uncle was giving her a good clout to the ear, he missed his mark and delivered a good clout to Mig's nose instead. This happened often enough that it interrupted the proper workings of Mig's nose. And so it was that the overwhelming stench of despair and hopelessness and evil was not at all bad to her, and she went happily down the twisting, turning stairs. I'm going to read one more chapter. Gosh, she shouted, it's dark, ain't it? Gosh, she shouted, it's dark, ain't it? Yes, it is, Mig, she answered herself, but if I was a princess, I would be so glittery light-like, there wouldn't be a place in the world that was dark to me. At this point, Miggery Sow broke into a little song that went something like this. I ain't the Princess P, but someday I will be. The P, baby, someday I will be. Mig, as you can imagine, wasn't much of a singer, more of a bellower, which means yeller. really. But in her little song, there was, to the rightly turned ear, a certain kind of magic, and as Mig went singing down the stairs of the dungeon, there appeared from the shadows a rat, wrapped in a cloak of red and wearing a spool on his head. Yes, yes, whispered the rat, a lovely song, just the song I have been waiting to hear. And Roscoe quietly fell in step beside Miggery Sow. At the bottom of the stairs, Mig shouted out into the darkness, "Go! It's me, Miggery Sow. Most calls me Mig, delivering your food. Come and get it, Mr. Deepsdown." There was no response. The dungeon was quiet, but it was not quiet in a good way. It was quiet in an ominous, scary way, in a weird way. It was quiet in the way of a small, frightening sounds. And there was the snail-like slither of water oozing down the walls, and from around the darkened corner there came the low moan of someone in pain. And then, too, there was the noise of the rats going about their business, their sharp nails hitting the stones of the dungeon, and their long tails dragging behind them and through the blood and muck. Reader, if you were standing in the dungeon, you would certainly hear all those disturbing and scary sounds. If I were standing in the dungeon, I would hear those sounds. If we were standing together in the dungeon, we would hear these sounds, and we would be very frightened. We would cling to each other in our fear. But what did Miggery Sow do? That's right, absolutely nothing. And why? Because she can't hear. And so she was not afraid at all, not in the least. She held the tray up higher, and the candle shed its weak light on the towering pile of spoons and bowls and kettles. "Go," said Mig, "look at them things. I ain't never imagined there could be so many spoons in the whole wide world." "There is more to this world than anyone could imagine," said the booming voice from the darkness. "True, true," whispered Roscoe. "The old jailer speaks true." "Go," said Mig. "Who said that?" And she turned in the direction of the jailer's voice. We're going to stop right there. Claire says she's dying today. She decided to hold the camera instead of me just balancing it. So I'm going to stop right there. I hope you guys have a great day. I look forward to seeing everybody this week, and I will read another few chapters tomorrow. Bye. Did it stop?